Here's a question I get asked a lot. What's it like to be a school-based mental health practitioner? Well, in tonight's episode, I am happy to give you the light side and the dark side. So let's jump right into it. Hey, this is Eric Nance. Welcome to the Dark Side of Therapy. This is a show that my producer and I created to help new therapists. And I've said that so many times now, I realize, what does that actually mean? Well, number one, I want you to get into the field knowing as much as you possibly can. I don't want you to be ignorant of the facts. I want you to know how bad things can get. I want you to know how it's going to feel when you don't want to do the job anymore. So this is the kind of stuff we cover, and I'm happy to do it. So tonight's a little bit different because we're going to talk about school-based mental health. Now, what exactly does that mean? Most of us think about therapists and therapy, social workers, working for an agency, working in an office, possibly working at home now in the era of COVID. But a lot of schools actually have mental health people inside of them. I did 3 different schools. I did 1 alternative school and 2 public schools. And I'm here to tell you, one thing I learned very quickly, and something I continue to learn from my supervisees, is if you're a mental health person in a school system, you're really not part of their world. When I had my first school-based job, I didn't even have an office. I'm not even kidding. I went to work every day, and the first week, I think I had to meet with kids in a gym locker room. Okay, imagine that. Smell was terrible. And eventually it moved to a conference room. The problem with that is everybody could walk by and see you. So after some time, my agency advocated and I actually got an office. But it's tough. And because you're not a school employee usually, it's tough to know how to present and how to act and how to be. Now, one school I'm going to focus on, I'm not going to name it. I was there for 5 years, and I remember the second year I was there talking to a good friend of mine who's a speech pathologist. I said, I want to be respected and liked. And he looked at me and did not blink and said to me, you have a better chance of being liked. So I always think about that. So what's going to happen for a lot of you new clinicians and therapists who work for an agency that have school-based contracts or school-based associations? That's where you're going to get put. I'm going to sound really cynical here for a second, but a lot of people don't want to work in the school system for the reasons I just outlined, and some more reasons I'm going to give you. So you newbies, you're probably going to get stuck in a school system, okay? I think it's a great training ground. I think you're going to learn a lot, but it can be tough. Now, one of the challenges, and probably the biggest challenge, is if you're a therapist in a school-based setting, your schedule does not just run itself. You have to collaborate with everybody. That means if you've got a caseload of 20 kids, you've got to collaborate with all of those kids' teachers to get the times to work for you, to work for the teacher. And if the teachers don't like you, and I had some that I'm pretty sure didn't like me, it becomes a lot tougher. So trying to be liked, as my friend said, went a long way because over time I established some good relationships. But here's a huge mistake I made. I tried to pull a kid out of gym, okay? Because that's where the principal said you should pull kids from. And looking back, I'm thinking that's a horrid idea because kids need gym. They need gym to run the energy off and to just get something out of their system. So this teacher said to me, you're not going to pull kids from my class because the gym is my classroom. And this was in no uncertain terms. And I realized, yeah, that's probably a good idea. I won't pull kids from your class. Slowly you get to realize and understand where you can pull kids and where you can't. But when you're a newbie in a school, it takes time. It takes time. Now, I was very blessed in the school that I mentioned that I had a superintendent who really liked mental health services, who really believed in it. So I would go to the staff meetings. She would talk about the need for mental health. And one of the coolest things that ever happened is the principal came and talked to me at one point, and we had reduced the amount of, I believe, in-school suspensions by about 50–60% in the few years I was there. And that was great. That was great. Could not have been happier with that. Took a lot of pride in those numbers. Not saying I had everything to do with it. It's a collaborative effort. But that was really great. So that's what made working for the school really wonderful, when things went well. The other hard part is we want to collaborate with parents. Now, in your outpatient setting, you're typically going to get access to parents if you're working with kids. Not all the time. Sometimes they'll just drop their kids off and you never see the parents, but typically you're going to have some access to them. School is different. I had a supervisee just the other day say, this is really difficult because I never see parents. They won't call me back. They won't sign the paperwork I need to get signed. I call them, and it becomes the issue of how much work do you put into it. Now, the other hard part is you've got to get paperwork signed to see the school-based kids. And if a teacher is pressuring you to see a kid, guess what? You cannot treat that kid until you have an authorization by the legal guardian. Well, we've had situations, or I've experienced situations where we've served kids and did not have an authorized signature because it was the right thing to do. Now, I'm not advocating any of you do that, but for those of you that do school-based work, you know what I'm talking about. There are times we just can't reach the parents, and that's the way it is. So that's another challenge you're going to face. Same with treatment plans. For us to bill for the work we're doing, we have to have a recently signed treatment plan, usually every 3 months. I actually have encouraged supervisees to bribe the kids to take them home. Yes, buy them a Sprite, get them a candy bar, Flaming Cheetos, I don't care. Little manipulative, maybe, but those are the lengths we have to go to. So, as I'm saying all this, I want you to get a feel again for what it is like to be a school-based clinician. But it even gets worse because you're going to deal with teachers who will diagnose your kids. I had kids, or I had teachers that would tell me all the time, this kid's ADHD. Have they ever been tested? No, I just know they're ADHD. They would do so much better if they were on medication. That may or may not be true. That may or may not be true. But if you're not a mental health provider, you have no business saying that. I had another teacher tell me that one of the kids in his class was bipolar. Never been assessed for bipolar. I had never seen the signs and symptoms of bipolar, but he told me that's what the kid had. So that was pretty frustrating. What I ultimately learned is that this is a place where you pick your battles. And typically I would just let the teacher be right and keep on doing my own thing. And I didn't like that because, again, it felt like the relationship was then sacrificed a bit. So the relationships I had that were great, again, I really gravitated toward those because I knew, again, there weren't going to be any problems. Now, again, as I'm saying all this, I don't want to dissuade you from a school-based position because, again, you're probably going to get stuck in one, and that is okay because it's going to be a great training ground. But to recap, you need to know that you don't work for the school typically. In rare cases, you will be a contract employee with the school or hired as a mental health person with the school paying you. But that's pretty rare. I don't see that a whole lot. Usually what I see are contracts between schools and agencies, okay? So again, being the outlier, you work for your agency, not the school. And again, do not expect to walk in there and be best friends with everybody. A lot of teachers don't like outsiders. The school I worked in was very, very close-knit, and I was kind of seen as somebody that was coming in and interfering, even though that wasn't the case at all. So again, these are some hurdles you're going to have to overcome. But if you can stick it out, and do the work, and be the best therapist you can be in a mental health setting, you're going to grow exponentially because, again, you're going to face challenges that you will not face quite as much in an outpatient setting where the peers are everywhere. School-based setting, your peers aren't there. Your supervisor's not even there. I remember days where my supervisor would have to come into the school, observe me because that's what the program called for, and sign off on my paperwork then. Other than that, we maintain phone contact, but you don't have that support person right there. Whereas when I worked in the outpatient setting, I had somebody to this side of me and somebody to that side. So I could go and talk to somebody in a mental health sense anytime I wanted to. School-based didn't allow for that. So again, a couple parting thoughts. You may have to do school-based work. Do it. Get something out of it. Put your heart and soul into it, and then see where your career takes you after that. Some of us have spent many years in schools. Again, I think overall 6-7 years in school systems doing mental health work with kids, so I'm very well versed in it. Don't want to do it forever. I prefer the outpatient world. But put your heart and soul into it. It's a great training ground, and you're going to walk away with so many skills and abilities. This I promise you. So if you like this video, again, please smash that like button and please subscribe and please leave us some feedback. We would love to hear from you. This is the Dark Side of Therapy saying goodbye.